2025 looks like it's going to be a massive year for the entire blockchain industry. It's still one of the fastest growing technologies of all time. We've seen a Cambrian explosion of new blockchain use cases in the recent years, like cryptocurrency, DeFi, NFTs, AI, gaming, real world assets, and billions of dollars are flowing into this industry to build the next generation of blockchain applications. All this means there's an insane opportunity on the table for everyday people to capitalize on this opportunity. So how, you might ask? By gaining high-value blockchain development skills. And there's so many ways to do it. You can get a job, you can become a freelancer, you can build your own application, or you can build your own arbitrage-based trading bots with flash loans. So no matter what your goal is, I'm going to show you everything in this video that you need to achieve it. I'll break it all down into a roadmap that you can follow step by step to go from zero to blockchain master, even if you've never coded before in your life. I'll show you everything in this video today as a blockchain developer myself, who's worked with this technology on a daily basis ever since 2017. I'm going to answer everything like what programming languages should you learn, which blockchain to use, how much money can you make, and how to break into the industry step by step. So if you're new around here, hey, I'm Gregory, and on this channel, I turn you into a blockchain master. And I put a ton of time into creating this comprehensive roadmap that you can follow step by step completely for free on YouTube. And the only thing that I ask in return is that you like this video, go ahead and smash the like button. It really helps this channel out for the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe to this channel and then share this video online. And if you like what you see in this video today and you want to take the next step, then I can show you how to increase your income by becoming a blockchain developer step by step from start to finish over at dappuniversity.com/bootcamp. All right, so let's dive in. Let's look at the roadmap for becoming a blockchain developer in 2025. So I'm remaking this video because I do it every single year. You know, a lot changes in this industry, and I want to keep this up to date so that you know how to take advantage of this in 2025. So here's an overview of everything that we'll talk about today. We're going to quantify the opportunity. We're going to see why is this industry booming? How much money can you make as a developer? What can you actually do as a blockchain developer? We'll talk about the skills that you must know, like what are the programming languages? Which blockchain should you use? Frameworks, libraries, everything. Then finally, we'll put together a step-by-step plan that's going to take you from zero to blockchain master. We'll cover how to learn the skills, exactly what to do, and then once you've learned the skills, how to put that into practice to achieve your goals, whether it's to create your own project, break in the industry, land a job, become a freelancer, whatever. And then finally, I'll answer a ton of frequently asked questions that I get all the time, like, do I need to be a programmer already? Do I need a computer science degree? Should I learn blockchain first, or should I learn a bunch of other programming languages before I start this? So get comfy, grab a snack. We've got a lot to cover, so let's dive in. So let's go ahead and jump into section 1. Let's quantify the opportunity for blockchain developers. So like I was saying at the beginning of this video, blockchain is one of the fastest growing technologies of all time, which means that there's an insane demand for blockchain developers. So think about it in terms of basic supply and demand economics. Because this is growing so fast, there's a huge demand for blockchain developers, and there's a relatively small supply relative to that demand, okay? So when you have a big supply and demand imbalance, that means there's a ton of demand, small supply, that means there's a ton of compensation for people who actually have these skills, which of course means the price of compensation goes up. And that's reflected in the data. So if you go look at the average salary for a blockchain developer, it's about $150,000 per year. Okay, now of course that's for somebody with some experience, okay? But if you compare that to other disciplines, like you look at web developer, the national average is about $93,000 time recording this video. And then if you look at mobile developer, the average is about $114,000, okay? So the point I'm trying to make is that blockchain is very lucrative compared to other fields in technology, okay? It's about 50%, maybe 40% more than these other disciplines. And on top of that, blockchain has a ton of things going for it besides just the compensation. It's a really interesting technology that if you get in on the ground floor, there's a ton of opportunities associated with that. I mean, imagine being one of the first web developers in the 90s. Whenever you get inside the industry, you're going to be working directly with the technology. You're going to find out about a ton of other opportunities before other people. It unlocks a ton of other lifestyle benefits, like it's very remote friendly, so you can kind of work from wherever you want to. Not to mention the fact that if you wanted to become a freelancer, you could, set your own hours and work at your own pace. And on top of that, there's so many other insane stories of people who have become wildly successful by becoming blockchain developers. Like the 12-year-old boy who earned over $400,000 selling NFTs in just 2 months on his summer holiday, or the 12-year-old girl who made $4 million off of her NFT project, not to mention the developers that are out there creating their own bots, okay? So one way to do this is with arbitrage-based trading bots with flash loans, okay? I just made a video recently on my channel about a developer who made $180,000 in a single month with their bot, okay? So again, these aren't bots that are trying to predict the future about what cryptocurrency prices are doing. They're actually capitalizing off opportunities that exist in the marketplace right now. So basically, if you can buy cryptocurrency on one exchange and sell on another exchange for a profit, you can do this. And with flash loans, you can basically borrow all the money so that you don't have any capital tied up in these transactions. And it's not just flash loan bots, okay? We've seen a ton of explosion in this space with new cryptocurrencies launching every single day, especially in the meme coin space. And this creates opportunities to create sniping bots. So you can see a story right here of a blockchain developer that made over $6.8 million in pure profit off of sniping. So the opportunities are absolutely insane. So make sure you subscribe to the channel because I occasionally do live classes on these particular topics and you don't want to miss those. All right, so now let's talk about the skills that you need to know to become a blockchain developer. So we just talked about the opportunity, how there's a big supply and demand imbalance for blockchain developers. You know, it's one of the highest paying fields in tech. You can get a job, become a freelancer, create your own project, bot, whatever. But whatever your goal is, there's a core set of essential skills that you have to know, and that's what we're going to talk about in this section. All right, so in order to understand what you need to know to become a blockchain developer, you have to understand what do blockchain developers even do, and that comes down to the use cases. Okay, so what can you even do with blockchain technology in the first place? So I've got a list here. I'll go through each of these, but what I'll say is I've also updated this list because, you know, this space is changing all the time, and I've added some of the hot trends for 2025. So let's start off with the first one, which is decentralized finance or DeFi. Okay, this is a pretty broad umbrella that includes cryptocurrency, includes a lot of other things. And this is probably the biggest one because think about it. You know, blockchain is a pay-to-play system, and the obvious most use case for that is finance, payments, all that type of stuff. So let's start off with cryptocurrency. So of course, this includes major cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum, and also tokens that are built on top of those blockchains, which includes stablecoins. So stablecoins are huge because they offer a way for people to transfer value across nation states, anywhere in the world, instantly and really cheap. And we've seen massive players in this space like PayPal launching their own stablecoin. We've seen people like Stripe, with one of the world's largest payment processors, adopting stablecoin technology so they can unlock this to massive adoption. And also under the DeFi umbrella, you can basically take anything that you can think of in traditional finance and copy and paste it onto the blockchain. Things like savings, lending, trading, et cetera, et cetera. You've got examples like Aave, which works kind of like a bank where you could deposit cryptocurrency into it, earn interest. You can also take loans out on the other side. And finally, underneath this big cryptocurrency and DeFi umbrella, you of course have a ton of financial speculation. Meme coins have been a huge thing in 2024. I expect them to be also pretty big in 2025 as well. You've got new coins launching every single day on decentralized exchanges, on platforms like Pump.Fun, and that's attracting a ton of attention into this space. So the next major use case that I want to talk about is with NFTs or non-fungible tokens. So most people think of NFTs like digital collectibles. Okay, you might see a collection like CryptoPunks where you can own a digital collectible on the blockchain, or maybe something like Bored Ape Yacht Clubs. But I'm particularly excited about what we can do for NFTs beyond just digital pictures on a blockchain, okay? We're just scratching the surface with this. We see lots of other major players actually modeling real-world items on-chain with NFTs. We got things like Story Protocol, which is modeling intellectual property with NFTs on the blockchain. You've also got platforms that are doing real estate on the blockchain with NFTs, where maybe you could own a property on the blockchain with an NFT, or you could also buy, fractional shares of a property and own it that way with blockchain as well. So we're just scratching the surface for what we can do with NFTs. Those are some of the use cases that have emerged to date, and I expect this list to continue to grow into 2025 and beyond. All right, so the next major use case is Web 3.0. So pretty much everything in this list could actually be categorized as Web 3.0, but what this specifically means is basically taking everything that we do in Web 2.0 right now and moving it onto the blockchain or making it decentralized, okay? So one really popular use case for this is something like decentralized social media, all right? And particularly within the past year, we've seen applications like Farcaster really blow up and start to gain a lot of traction. Basically, this is an alternative social media platform that's built on blockchain. It has a ton of active users and it's growing every single day. So crypto gaming is another major use case. Basically, these are games that are built on the blockchain so that you can do things like actually own items in the game with NFTs. You can take them out of the game, keep them in your wallet, potentially even sell those things, all right? So we saw a massive crypto game launch this past year on the Avalanche blockchain off the grid that got a lot of attention outside the blockchain space. And that's one reason that crypto gaming is very powerful, is it provides a way for people who don't already use blockchain to come into this space and take advantage of this technology. So next is AI. Okay, so basically AI, of course, has exploded as well over the past several years, and we're seeing a ton of use cases that actually intersect with blockchain and artificial intelligence. We're seeing things like AI agents really start to make a huge wave in 2025. Okay, basically where you have AIs that actually do things for you, and you can equip these AIs with crypto wallets so they can pay for things on chain. They can potentially make you money. They can even talk to other AIs and coordinate together and pay each other with crypto. Not to mention things like zero-knowledge machine learning, which is a huge emerging field inside of blockchain technology that I'm also super excited about. So next is DePIN, or decentralized physical infrastructure. Okay, so what is this? So basically, it's taking things like Amazon Web Services or Google Cloud Compute, basically cloud computing platforms where you can rent online resources, and making this decentralized, where pretty much if anybody wants to participate in this, they can run cloud infrastructure and then get paid for doing that. So Akash is a pretty popular platform for this type of thing. There's lots of other players in this space, but that's just one example. And then finally is real world assets. Okay, so this is again something that you could categorize a couple of other things in this list under this category, things like, real estate and the blockchain. But I particularly want to talk about a major player like BlackRock that's getting into space to actually spearhead this effort. Okay. So BlackRock created its BUIDL fund for real world assets on chain. Of course, if you're not familiar with BlackRock, it's the world's largest asset manager. They were responsible for getting the Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs approved. And basically, real world assets and tokenizing them are things like US treasuries and putting them on chain where you can actually own these in a blockchain tokenized way. And that's just scratching the surface. I mean, in the future, we could potentially do things like stocks, bonds, and even real estate like I was talking about before. All right, so those are some of the major use cases for blockchain technology in 2025 and beyond. But now let's talk about, why would you even use a blockchain in the first place? Why would you create the apps on top of a blockchain and not some other way? Well, this all comes down to the core values of blockchain, like decentralization. So instead of having a centralized system where, a single entity has control of everything, blockchains are decentralized. So there's multiple people who are responsible for running the networks, and there's fewer points of failure like in a centralized system. Okay, so also it's censorship resistant, which basically means that no single entity can get in there and change something or censor something that they don't like. It's also trustless, so you don't have to trust any intermediaries when you're making transactions. You don't have to worry about is something going to change or go down. And then finally, it's transparent. So all the information on the blockchain is public and everyone can look at it and see it and verify that it works in real time. All right, so in order to understand all that, let's actually get into some theory, some basics. Let's talk about what is a blockchain and how does it work? All right, so a blockchain is basically just a worldwide computer that's run by lots of people. So it's a peer-to-peer network of computers that all talk to one another. So each of these computers is called a node that's linked together. So this node is a computer, this is a computer, this is a computer, this is a computer. And they all work together redundantly with that effort to make up a single computer that processes all the transactions in the blockchain and is responsible for maintaining this public state of the blockchain, which anybody can verify. So let's look at an example of a crypto transaction. So let's say that I'm going to send cryptocurrency from my account to yours. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect to the blockchain with a single computer, a single node on the network. I'm going to submit the transaction to the blockchain to take cryptocurrency out of my account, put it in yours. And then whenever this particular node or computer processes that transaction, it's going to talk to all the other nodes in the network to verify this transaction. And they're going to work together to say, yes, the transaction is legit. It should go through and we should include this into the blockchain. And then once that's finished, of course, your balance is going to increase and my balance is going to decrease. So we want to do this with a blockchain instead of a centralized web server, because think about it. If you did this with just a regular program that ran on a web server somewhere, anybody who ran that could just go into the database and update your balance or tamper with the transaction. It doesn't make any sense. But when you do this with the blockchain, you can do it with all these different nodes that talk to one another so that it's trustless, okay? It's decentralized, and it's also transparent so that anybody can actually see that the transaction went through properly and verify that it worked. All right, so that's how we can use blockchains for basic cryptocurrency transactions. But then when you add in smart contracts, that completely changes the game for what's even possible with blockchains. So smart contracts are just programs that run on the blockchain. And that's one thing you do as a developer. You're actually creating these immutable programs that run on the blockchain so that you can create any type of application that you want to. So there's lots of different use cases for smart contracts. So a lot of the cryptocurrencies that you actually use are powered by smart contracts. They're tokens, which are just programs that are put on top of other blockchains, particularly if they're non-native gas tokens for a particular network. So things like NFTs, which I mentioned before, are powered by smart contracts, or any type of decentralized application that you might have used before. Things like decentralized exchanges. If you ever traded a token on an app like Radium or Uniswap, you're actually using smart contracts that run on those blockchains. And these smart contracts are what open up the door to all the other use cases that I talked about before, like DeFi, NFTs, Web 3.0 gaming, AI, DePIN, and also real world assets. Okay, so now let's revisit these use cases and actually talk about the values of blockchain and why you'd want to do each of these things on a blockchain and not some other way. So starting off with DeFi, like I said before with cryptocurrency, obviously you don't want centralized control over a money supply where somebody could tamper with your balance. But in other aspects of DeFi, like savings and lending, okay, it's permissionless. Anybody can go out there and do it. Also things like flash loans where you can borrow millions of dollars in cryptocurrency for free as long as you pay it back in the same transaction. That type of technology is only possible with blockchains and not in any type of centralized system. So things like NFTs, all right, they're digitally scarce. You want to be able to prove that you can't duplicate an NFT, and you can also prove that you own it publicly on chain. So going on to Web 3.0, things like social media, obviously censorship is a huge problem in social media that's top of mind for a lot of people. And with blockchain, you can make social media censorship resistant, basically avoiding shadow banning or deplatforming, also transparency of social media algorithms. Moving on to gaming, okay? We're talking about in-game assets that you can actually own and take them outside of the game on chain and control them. Things like artificial intelligence. Obviously, we can improve the transparency of AI with blockchain. We can do things like AI agents with crypto wallets where they can actually pay for things on chain. With DePIN, we can avoid centralized control of cloud infrastructure by rolling that responsibility out to multiple people. And then finally, with real-world assets, we can make these open, permissionless so that more people can use them. All right, so now let's talk about what blockchain developers do. Now, in order to answer that question, we're going to first ask the question, what kind of blockchain developer you should be? Because when somebody says blockchain developer, it can mean a few different things. Now, I'm going to break this down into two major categories. All right, the first type is application developer, and the second is core/infrastructure developer. So an application developer is somebody who's building, full stack blockchain applications that the user can actually see and interact with, okay? And then a core or an infrastructure developer is building something that all the apps run on top of. So they're working on things like blockchain nodes, clients, other types of low-level infrastructure, okay? So if you don't know what you want to do, then I highly recommend becoming an application developer. So why is that? Well, they're in more demand and it's easier for beginners or even experienced developers to learn. Okay, it's a lot easier to become a blockchain developer, become an application developer. There's a lot more use cases for it. It's a much broader marketplace. Now, with core developers, it's much more niche, all right? It's a lot harder to learn and get started. There's less resources for doing all that type of stuff. So, if you have your heart set on becoming a core developer, you could definitely do that. It's just going to be a little bit harder to get started. And I don't quite have as many resources for you to learn that type of thing. That's why I recommend becoming an application developer. That's exactly what I teach you how to do on this channel. Okay, so once you've narrowed down on becoming an application developer inside of blockchain, that still breaks down into three different parts of the tech stack, okay? Because again, we're talking about full stack blockchain development. There's three different layers, okay? So the first is really the smart contracts, okay? So these are the immutable programs that are put on the blockchain. That's what is the lifeblood that powers blockchain applications. Okay, we'll talk about how to develop those in a second. Then there is the front end side of things. All right, that's what the user sees. So if they're using a website like a decentralized exchange, they're looking at a website that talks to the blockchain. That's the front end. That's the client side. Okay. So the client side could also be a mobile application that the user is using that also interacts with the blockchain. And you can focus on this side of things as a blockchain developer. And then finally, I'm also going to talk about the backend, okay? So the backend can mean a few different things, but I broke it out into its own category here because inside blockchain development, a lot of times we still have hybrid applications that use backend web servers and traditional databases to put information on those services that don't have to be on a blockchain. In some Web 3.0 applications, you have hybrids where something goes on the blockchain and then some things go on a traditional web server, and you kind of marry these two things together. So as a blockchain developer, you can become full stack and work on all of these things, or you can specialize and say, hey, I want to focus on becoming a smart contract developer, or I want to focus on becoming a front-end developer that works on blockchain, or I just want to work on the back end and specialize in those types of interactions as well. Okay, so now let's look at some real world applications that use blockchain and analyze them. Okay, let's talk about how does the application work? How is it created? So like if you're a developer, what do you do in order to make something like this? If you were working on this for a project, like what would you be tasked to create? How does it work on the front end, on the back end, on the blockchain, et cetera, et cetera. So the first application that I'm going to talk about is Uniswap. Okay, so this is one of the most popular applications out there. It's a decentralized exchange or a DEX. So if you look at the website I have pulled up right here, this website is talking directly to the blockchain, all right? So basically you put in one cryptocurrency, you tell it which cryptocurrency you want, you connect your blockchain wallet, you click swap, and boom, it spits out the tokens. So how it works is, again, this website talks to the blockchain, and on the back end, there are some smart contracts that facilitate the transfer of these tokens. So where are the tokens in this application? If it works like a vending machine, you put in money, you get something back out. Where's the stuff inside the vending machine, the cryptocurrency? Well, they're in these things called liquidity pools, which basically are giant reservoirs of money where decentralized, liquidity providers could be everyday people, just park their cryptocurrency into these smart contracts that the application is able to trade, and they can get a passive income reward for doing that. So if you go look at a website like uniswap.info, all right, that is going to show you all the activity that's happening on top of Uniswap. You can see all the different cryptocurrencies that are trading on there. Okay, you can look at the most recent transactions and see the actual swaps that are happening in real time. So many of these tokens are just smart contracts that are deployed to the blockchain that are trading on this platform. If you look at a website like Etherscan, you can actually see the smart contracts for Uniswap. You can see the Solidity code here. You can see how the swaps are happening in real time if you look at the transactions. And so this is all the activity that's happening on chain. Okay, so now let's actually talk about how you would create Uniswap. So if you're a developer and you wanted to build Uniswap from scratch, okay, you want to build an automated market maker, that'd be a great portfolio project. How would you do it? Well, let's start off with the back-end side of things on the blockchain. So again, you go on Etherscan, you can actually see the smart contract code for Uniswap. It's open source. Anybody can see it. Anybody could, basically copy this and create their own version of it. So you can see all the code here. All right. This is Solidity. So this is the main programming language for writing smart contracts on Ethereum and other EVM compatible chains. So on the smart contract side of things, you would create some smart contracts to facilitate the trading activity on top of Uniswap, and also the liquidity providing so that other people can, add their tokens so that the app has money to trade, and then also a factory so that people can create new trading pairs. All right. So then let's fast forward to the other side of things, which is actually the website. So again, when we're looking at this website, uniswap.org, this is a website that talks directly to the blockchain. The user connects their MetaMask wallet, they add the token they want to trade, they tell the token they want, they click swap, and boom, it works. So this website is going to be written primarily in JavaScript. All right. So we use Solidity on the blockchain side of things to write the smart contracts, but then we use JavaScript on the front end, the client side, what the user can see, to handle all the user interactions. All right. So if you wanted to create the website for this, you need to know JavaScript. You're also going to need to know something like HTML and CSS to lay everything out on the page and then make it look like you see here. And then you're also going to use JavaScript for all the other user interactions, like connecting the blockchain wallet. Anytime somebody signs a transaction and submits that to the blockchain, you're going to use JavaScript for that activity as well. So in summary, if you want to create an automated market maker, you write the smart contracts in Solidity, put that in the blockchain. You can put it on Ethereum. You can put it on any other EVM compatible environment, like an Ethereum layer 2, like Base, for example, or Arbitrum, Optimism, Polygon, whatever. And then also on the front end, you're going to put this on a web server. It's going to be written primarily in JavaScript. You can use a framework like React or Next.js, and then also some additional libraries to handle the blockchain interactions, which I'll talk about when we get to this technologies portion. So now let's look at a different type of blockchain application. Let's look at how an NFT-based application would work. So earlier in the video, I talked about the 12-year-old boy who made over $400,000 in 2 months selling his NFTs. So what if you wanted to create something like that? All right. So I'm going to use a really famous example of like the Bored Ape Yacht Club. Okay, this is basically an NFT collection. It's one of the most popular ones. Basically how this works is that, there's an NFT drop. So you have a website that says like, hey, we're going to release an NFT on such and such date, show up with your wallet, have it funded. And then you're going to click mint on this website and it's going to issue you your own NFT, and it's going to get indexed on a marketplace like OpenSea so that other people can buy it later if you want to list it for sale. Okay. So how does this work? Well, let's start off with the blockchain side of things. So again, the NFT collection itself is going to be powered by an Ethereum smart contract written in Solidity. So again, the whole value proposition of NFTs is that they're digitally scarce, all right? Nobody can copy the NFT, all right? You own it, you can prove it on the blockchain with your wallet, and that's exactly what the smart contract is for. So again, this smart contract is really just one file. It's written in Solidity, and you can see how it works here on my screen, okay? So the other nice thing about NFTs is most of them are kind of copy and paste in the sense that you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time you issue a new NFT collection. You can use a library for that. One of the most popular ones is OpenSea. Basically, you can take an off-the-shelf solution for NFT, customize it a little bit with the code in Solidity, and then get up and running really fast. So that's really all you need in terms of the blockchain side of things. And I'll mention that follows the ERC 721 standard. That's the non-fungible token standard for NFTs, okay? So let's talk about the images. So of course, the smart contract just governs, who owns which NFTs. It allows you to move them between wallets, but you also have these pictures, which you can see, all right? So there's a couple things. You've got to create the images for your NFT. And of course, you need to have some type of artwork in order to do that. If you're a graphic designer, great. If you're not, I see a lot of people these days launching their own NFTs with the help of artificial intelligence image generation. So that's a really great opportunity there. You can basically have an AI, create 10,000 unique NFT images for you. That's a really good way to get started. But once you have those NFT images, where do they go? So you don't put pictures on a blockchain, all right? They're too big. So where do you put them? Well, you don't really want to put them on a centralized web server either because you want to guarantee that the images will be there forever. So that's what you use something like IPFS for. So what is that? Well, it's the interplanetary file system. So it works kind of like a blockchain, but not really. So basically, it's just a decentralized file storage system where you can put pictures and other types of media on there that are too big to put on a blockchain, but you put them on IPFS. And then in the case of NFTs, what you do is you get back a hash, and that tells you the location of the image on IPFS. And then you store that image back on the blockchain with the smart contract as a reference. So you've got the smart contract that governs who owns the NFTs and lets them transfer them around. And that points to the image and the other metadata on IPFS that contains all the pictures for the NFTs. Now, finally, whenever you're going to launch an NFT, if you have a minting website, people show up, connect their wallet, you're of course going to need to create that as well. So just like in the previous example, you would create a website like this with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. You use a framework like React.js or Next.js. And then to handle all the blockchain interactions, when somebody shows up and they, come with their MetaMask wallet or their Phantom wallet, whatever, they click connect, they click that button that lets them sign the transaction to put it on the blockchain. You're going to need a special library to facilitate that transaction. And that's exactly what a library like Ethers.js is. Okay, I'll explain that more when we get to the technologies here in a minute. All right, so now let's look at another blockchain application, which is MetaMask. Okay, so MetaMask is one of the most popular blockchain wallets out there. They have a Chrome extension, they have a desktop application, and they also have a mobile application. But what I want to focus on is the actual mobile wallet for blockchain, because I want to talk about, how would you create a mobile application as a blockchain developer? So basically what the application does on mobile is it lets you hold cryptocurrency in the wallet securely. It lets you do things like send cryptocurrency from one account to another. It also lets you interact with decentralized applications or dApps powered by smart contracts directly from the wallets, like sign the transactions, make swaps, trade NFTs, whatever, you want to do, you can do it directly from MetaMask mobile. So how would you create something like this? Well, whenever you're creating an app for a mobile platform, whether it's iOS or Android, you have to make a choice, right? You can do things in the native programming languages for each of those platforms. So if you're on iOS, you could do it in Swift. If you're on Android, you could do it in Java, or you could kill two birds with one stone, all right? You could actually use a different programming language like JavaScript, all right? Which you could use a framework like React Native, which what you can do is you can write the entire application inside of JavaScript, one single programming language, and then put it onto both app stores. You don't have to use two different programming languages. So that's a really powerful thing. So let's just assume that you wanted to use JavaScript, you wanted to use React Native, so you write the app once and it goes to two places. Well, how would you actually turn it into a blockchain application? Well, you're going to need some type of special library to turn your mobile application into the blockchain-based application, because mobile apps are not going to talk to the blockchain out of the box. So that's why you use something like Ethers.js. So if you wire up Ethers.js into your application, it's going to let you handle everything you need to do with the mobile wallet. Like number one, you need to store a private key on the device very securely, okay? So when I use a wallet, they have a private key on the device. You should never leave it. It should be secure. And then that private key is going to enable all the other features. So you can do that with the library Ethers.js, like I talked about a minute ago. Next, the user needs to send cryptocurrency. You can do that with Ethers. They need to be able to, swap or do any other smart contract interaction. They can also do that with Ethers.js as well. So basically, if you learn JavaScript, use React Native, you could build a mobile application that is a crypto wallet like MetaMask that does everything that you need it to do. All right, so now let's talk about which blockchain you should use and what programming languages you should learn. Okay, so I'm going to answer both of these questions at the same time. So let's pull up all the different programming languages you could learn for blockchain. So we'll start off with Solidity. Okay, so this is the #1 programming language for writing smart contracts for Ethereum and other EVM compatible chains. So things like any Ethereum layer 2 like Base, Arbitrum, Optimism, or any other EVM compatible chain like Polygon, Binance Smart Chain, Avalanche, etc., etc. All right. So next is Rust, or something like C, C++. So Rust is the programming language used for writing programs on top of Solana. So if you want to learn for Solana, you need to learn Rust. And then we're going to look at the other side of things. So these are two languages that are for the blockchain side of things. But if you learn blockchain and you want to be a full stack blockchain developer, you need a secondary programming language, even if you're not doing full stack, because you have to have another programming language to do things like write scripts for smart contracts, things that deploy the smart contracts to the blockchain, write tests, all that type of stuff. So there's two different options for this. The first is JavaScript, okay? So JavaScript is one of the most widely used programming languages in the entire world, and it has a very specific application in blockchain. Okay, then there's also Python, which is another huge programming language. You can do things like, write scripts for your smart contracts. You can write bots, that use the smart contract, talk to the blockchain. You can write tests, all that type of stuff. So there's really two different options here. Now, which one of these should you choose? Well, let's look at some data to support this. So let's start off by talking about which blockchains are actually used the most from the user side of things. So if I pull up a website like DeFi Llama, this is going to show me the market share of all the blockchains that are being used today. Okay, and if you see right here, the #1 blockchain is Ethereum. It's over half of all the activity. Okay, and that's what you use Solidity for, is writing smart contracts for the Ethereum blockchain. So there's a huge demand here from the user perspective. Now, you also see these other blockchains, but what you may not know is that a lot of these other blockchains, most of them that you see here, also use Solidity, that same programming language, for those blockchains as well. So things like Tron, things like Binance Smart Chain, and also the Ethereum layer 2s like Base, Arbitrum, and Avalanche, which is not a layer 2, but it also uses Solidity as well. So, most of everything that you see here is actually running the Solidity programming language for the programs that run on the specific blockchains. The exceptions, of course, are like Bitcoin and also Solana, which I talked about here a second ago, which is written in Rust. And I'll also pull up the most recent Electric Capital report for 2024. This looks at the past year, the current state of things. You won't get 2025, so it'll come out next year. But you can also see the data supports this as well. The #1 developer ecosystem by every single continent across the world is Ethereum. The second is Solana, and the third has a mixture of different blockchains. Many of them are also EVM compatible. So you can see that breakdown here. Ethereum is the leader in all these cases, and Solana is the second. So for the blockchain side of things, my opinionated stance is that the #1 programming language you should learn is going to be Solidity, all right? Because it's the widest used programming language, it's the largest developer ecosystem, there is the most demand for Solidity. So on top of that, it has a lot of other benefits. So it is beginner friendly. So if you're gonna learn something like Rust is a pretty hard language for beginners to learn. Solidity is a lot easier to learn if you're starting out, you're learning programming from scratch, or if you're an experienced developer and you want to skill up into a new programming language. you're going to learn Solidity probably a lot faster than you've learned Rust, unless you just know Rust already. In addition to that, with Solidity, you have all this flexibility. If you know this programming language, you know the programming language that's going to support many other blockchains, at least a dozen blockchains that people actually use today. So you have a ton of flexibility there. And then finally, and this is one that I think a lot of people don't realize when they're getting into this, especially if they're beginner, is that you want to go into an ecosystem where there is a ton of support, okay? So the last thing you want to do is start learning a programming language and then try to have resources to get unstuck. So if you're trying to Google your way through a problem or ask ChatGPT, you're going to have a lot more resources to figure out how to actually make it with Solidity rather than an alternative, smaller developer ecosystem. You also don't want to get into a situation where you don't have libraries for things that you need and all the other types of support that you get with a more mature developer ecosystem. And so, in conclusion, my number one opinionated recommendation, if you don't know what you want to learn, is to go to the Solidity track for all those reasons, all right? Now, again, when we talk about the other side of things, you need a secondary programming language. So should it be JavaScript or Python? So again, my opinionated recommendation is that you learn JavaScript. So why is that? Well, several reasons. It's just, you can do more with it, all right? So whenever you're creating blockchain applications, you're going to need to write scripts. You're going to need to deploy the contracts, write tests. You can do all that in JavaScript, but you can also do a lot more. So if you want to create a user interface for your blockchain application, you can do that really well in JavaScript. You're going to be much more limited than Python for that type of thing, all right? So Python's great if you know it and you want to get into blockchain and you want to make that your programming language, you can do it. But if you're just starting from scratch, JavaScript is definitely the way to go. Not to mention, if you're trying to break in the industry, you're going to need to create a portfolio of some kind so that other people can actually see what you can do, and JavaScript's going to be a huge asset for you as well. Not to mention, JavaScript is a lingua franca of the web. So many developers know JavaScript. If you know it as well, you can actually interact with those developers. And then finally, if you know JavaScript, it gives you an additional entry point into the industry, because all these blockchain applications have front ends. And again, many times there's a division of responsibilities between who creates the front end, who creates the back end. And if you just want to become a front end developer, it's a lot easier to get started that way. There's more opportunities. And if you know JavaScript and get really good at that, that gives you an additional entry point into the industry. So in summary, if you're just getting started and you're trying to figure out what programming languages to learn, which blockchain you should learn Solidity for the back end side of things for smart contract development, all right? That's going to help you develop for Ethereum and other EVM compatible chains, all the Ethereum layer 2s. And then for your secondary programming language, you should learn JavaScript so that you can do everything else you need to do as a blockchain developer and get a lot more mileage out of this ecosystem. All right, so now let's talk about all the tools and technologies that you need to learn in order to become a blockchain developer. So in the previous section, we talked about, Solidity and JavaScript. Those are programming languages, but you actually need to learn some other tools that are going to let you create real-world blockchain applications, and I'll go through each of those step by step. So we're going to start off with Solidity. So again, Solidity is the primary language for writing smart contracts on the blockchain. These are the building blocks of blockchain applications, and you have to know this if you're going to become a blockchain developer. So Solidity is a very high-level programming language. It's pretty beginner-friendly, all right? It's Turing complete, which basically means that pretty much anything you can do in another programming language, you can also do inside Solidity. So if you're a beginner, this is a pretty easy language on the grand scheme of things for you to pick up. Also, if you're an experienced developer coming from like a JavaScript background or a Python background, you can kind of look at Solidity and understand what's going on more or less, all right? So then, like I said before, you also need a secondary programming language, and my number one recommendation is going to be JavaScript, all right? So JavaScript, runs inside your web browser. You can create front-end applications that talk to the blockchain with this programming language. You can also run it on your computer with Node.js, which I'll talk about here in a minute. Okay, so now let's actually talk about things that you're going to install on your computer in order to become a blockchain developer. All right, so the first thing is going to be a framework. All right, so what is a framework? Well, whenever you're creating smart contracts, you want a set of tools on your computer that's going to make that process a lot faster. There's going to be a lot of things that you're doing over and over again, like creating smart contracts, writing tests, deploying them to a blockchain. And you don't want to do all that stuff from scratch manually over and over again. That's what a framework allows you to do. It gives you a set of tools on your computer to speed all that stuff up. So my number one recommendation for Solidity smart contracts is Hardhat. Okay, so this is a JavaScript-based development framework. So if you know JavaScript, you know Solidity, you're going to be right at home inside of Hardhat. This is one of the most widely used smart contract development framework, so it's widely supported. And it lets you do a lot of stuff really easily out of the box once you get this thing rolling on your computer. Again, you can do things like write smart contracts over and over again really easily. You can test them out with JavaScript on your computer. You can write scripts that run against the smart contracts. You can also deploy them to the blockchain. It also lets you do things like have plugins that you can install inside your framework. It's got a huge plugin ecosystem. And it also has the hard hat node, which I'll talk about in a minute, which is a development blockchain that runs on your computer so that you can, develop the smart contracts with like fake cryptocurrency and things like that to make your life a whole lot easier. Okay, so Hardhat is a great development framework for smart contracts that runs on your computer. But what if you want to do this like on the cloud, like in your web browser? You don't want to actually install anything on your computer in order to create a smart contract. Well, that's exactly what something like Remix is for. So what is it? Well, it's a browser-based IDE, which is basically an entire development environment in your web browser. You can go visit it and look at remix.ethereum.org. So what can you do with it? Well, basically, you can see that you can write smart contracts inside Solidity inside of here, so it has a text editor. You can also do things like compile the smart contracts inside your browser. You can also deploy them live to a blockchain. So if you have a MetaMask wallet, you have some cryptocurrency in your account, you can take your contracts here and put them on a mainnet application, on the mainnet blockchain. You can put it on a test network. You can collaborate with other people this way, okay? So, why would you use this versus something like Hardhat? Well, if you're just trying to get started really quickly, you don't want to install stuff on your computer, you maybe just want to mess around and hand test your contracts, then this can be a really good solution, okay? But if you're going to do more serious blockchain development, you're going to collaborate with others, push your code up into the cloud, use version control and stuff like that, then you're probably going to want to use something like Hardhat for a real professional development project where you're actually like saving your code and iterating on it over time. But if you just want to, test things out, hand test things, play around in your browser, then you can definitely use Remix for that. All right, so now let's talk about some specific libraries that you need to know if you're going to become a blockchain developer. So what is a library? Well, basically, it's a set of code tools that you can just import into your code base that's going to make your life a lot easier. So like we talked about frameworks a minute ago, basically that's tools in your computer that lets you write smart contracts. But whenever you're actually inside the code, let's say in JavaScript, for example, and you want to import some code that you can use in your code so you don't have to rewrite things over and over again, that's what a library is for. So the number one library that I want to recommend is Ethers.js, okay? So what is this? Well, let's look at an example, all right? So going back to Uniswap, which I talked about before, which basically is just a decentralized exchange, you connect your wallet, you tell it what token you have in your wallet and what token you want to receive. Let's say I have Ether and I want to swap USDC. Well, in here, you're going to connect your wallet. You're going to tell it which token you have, which token you want to receive. You click swap. And whenever you do that, it's going to submit the transaction to the blockchain. Now, again, this website's written in JavaScript, but JavaScript websites out of the box don't talk to the blockchain. All right, they don't work that way. So you need a special library to turn your application into a blockchain application, and that's exactly what Ethers.js does. So basically, Ethers lets you do so many different types of things. You can connect your application to the blockchain. You can do things in regular scripts outside of a website context, like you can just send cryptocurrency around from one account to another programmatically. You can read information from the blockchain. You can create crypto wallets with it. You can interact with decentralized applications like Uniswap to swap things. You can create trading bots. There's so many different things that you can do with Ethers.js, but the bottom line is it turns your application into a blockchain application, and therefore it is a must-know tool. It's the largest JavaScript library for interacting with the blockchain, and therefore you need to know it if you're going to become a blockchain developer. All right, so the next tool that you need to understand as a blockchain developer is MetaMask. So what is that? Well, basically, it is a browser extension that runs in your web browser that turns your web browser into a blockchain browser. So a minute ago, I was talking about Ethers.js turns your website into a blockchain application. Well, in a similar way, your web browser doesn't talk to the blockchain out of the box. You need a special browser extension for it. That's what MetaMask is for. So it is a crypto wallet. Again, it works on multiple platforms like mobile, like I was talking about before, but the most popular way is through the browser extension. So if you're going to a website like Uniswap, this is a decentralized application. It's a blockchain application. It's got to have Ethers.js to talk to the blockchain. But from the user perspective, they have to have a crypto wallet installed in order to use this. They can use Phantom, some other wallet, but the most popular is going to be MetaMask. Okay, so you need to know this as a blockchain developer so that you understand how to read the user's wallet, how to actually let them sign transactions whenever they swap tokens or do whatever interaction they do on the blockchain. Again, MetaMask is the most popular, and therefore you need to know it as a blockchain developer. Okay, so the next thing you need to learn as a blockchain developer is React.js and or Next.js. So what is that? Well, React is a JavaScript framework for creating user interfaces. Okay, so if you're going down the JavaScript route, becoming a blockchain developer, and you're going to create either websites or mobile applications that talk to your smart contracts in the blockchain, you need to be able to create those in JavaScript, and you do not want to create everything from scratch by hand. All right, that's what a framework lets you do. It lets you do things very powerfully that you would do over and over again with much, much less code. It makes things a lot easier. So React is a library for creating user interfaces. It's a component-based library, which you can see here. You can organize your code into these modular reusable components. It's a very neat way of doing things, all right? So whenever you're building a blockchain app, you can code the front end out in JavaScript with React. You can use Ethers.js and import it inside of React to have a full blockchain application. So on top of React, you probably want to have Next.js on your radar, because Next.js is kind of the modern way that a lot of people like to use for creating blockchain applications and also just regular web applications. Basically, it's just a souped up version of React that has some nice bells and whistles out of the box. That's what a lot of people are using in 2024 and 2025 for their front end applications. And so if you're going to learn front end, highly recommend React. Also recommend Next.js. All right, so the last tool that you need in your tool belt is Node.js. So what is that? Well, basically, it's a tool that lets you run JavaScript on your computer. So basically, JavaScript is a language that's native to your web browser. So by default, if you're going to run JavaScript, you need a browser in order to do it. But what if you don't want a browser? What if you want to run it on your computer? Well, that's basically what Node.js is. It's a runtime environment so that you can run JavaScript on your developer machine. You can also run on a web server, et cetera, et cetera. So why would you need this? Well, for a couple different things. Like I was talking about before, if you use a smart contract developer framework like Hardhat, okay, it's a JavaScript-based framework, and it needs Node.js as a core dependency in order to even operate in the first place on your computer, okay? So a couple other things, like if you're going to run standalone scripts in your computer on JavaScript that might interact with the blockchain, maybe you want to create a trading bot, something like that, you need Node.js in order to do that as well. And finally, the thing I'll say is that Node.js comes bundled with Node Package Manager, or NPM, and that's the primary tool that you're going to use to install all of the other dependencies on your computer for blockchain development. So if you're going to install Hardhat, you're probably going to do it with Node.js. If you want to install Ethers.js on your computer, you're probably going to do that with Node.js and NPM Package Manager as well. All right, so now let's talk about a step-by-step plan to learn blockchain from absolute zero, from scratch, okay? So I'm actually going to start off with a preliminary step, because before we actually get into how to learn how to code, a lot of people who are getting into blockchain may or may not have actually used a blockchain in the first place. Maybe they hold some cryptocurrency, but they haven't actually used a blockchain application. So that's going to be really step zero of this entire process, a preliminary step. So what's the easiest way to do this? Well, the easiest way is to get on a website like Uniswap, which I showed you before, and just use it, all right? You don't have to use a lot of money. You don't even have to use any money. I'll show you a free way to do this here in a second. But basically what you're going to want to do is go to Uniswap, okay? Go to the trade tab, and then get a token in your wallet, and then select a token you want to swap it to, all right? And then, go through the process of just clicking swap and seeing what happens. So in order to do this, you're going to have a few prerequisites. The first is that you're going to need a MetaMask wallet installed. Again, anytime you use a blockchain application, you need to use a wallet, okay? So MetaMask is the number one way to do that, all right? And so you install MetaMask, you're going to set up a wallet, you can go through the process of backing everything up, et cetera, but that's step one, all right? So the next step is, in order to use Uniswap, you have to fund the wallet with some cryptocurrency, all right? So there's several different ways to do this. If you already have an exchange account, you can just buy a little bit of cryptocurrency and send it to your wallet just like that. Or Uniswap also has the ability to buy cryptocurrency directly inside the application with a credit card or a debit card. You can just buy a small amount and then just do it that way, okay? Now, I know that Uniswap can be expensive to use, especially on an application, on a blockchain like Ethereum. So you've got some other options, all right? It supports multiple different networks, okay? So you can, change the network to a different blockchain, like an Ethereum layer 2, like Base. It's super cheap. You can make a swap for, a penny or less even, all right? Or if you want to do it on a different blockchain, even like Avalanche, that's fine too. All right. But finally, you can also do this a free way. All right. So Uniswap also runs on what's called a test network, which basically it's like a blockchain that has fake cryptocurrency on it. You can use a test network like Sepolia. You can go to a faucet and actually get some free Sepolia Ether, and you can just swap tokens on the application that way. So if you've never used a blockchain application before, you definitely want to do that before you even start learning to code. And this is the fastest, easiest way to do it with the lowest cost and potentially even free if you decide to do that. All right, so now let's actually talk about how to learn blockchain development from scratch. And what I want to start off with is the actual philosophy on what is the fastest, most effective way to learn blockchain development. So you should learn blockchain development just like you learn a foreign language. All right, so what's the fastest way to learn a foreign language? Well, it's through immersion. It's to actually get into a culture where other people are speaking that language and then learn the language that way, okay? It would take you forever, and you probably wouldn't even actually learn a foreign language if you just try to study a phrase book and then learn the language like that. Like, who opens a dictionary and learns a language just by looking at words and then piecing them together without ever actually even talking to anybody or putting that language into practice? It's not going to happen. So the same thing is true of programming, okay? So what you don't want to do with programming is you don't want to just try to learn the programming language by looking at the documentation and learning every little piece of that, from scratch. That's the wrong way to do it. It's backwards. The best, fastest, most effective way to do it is to actually learn the programming language while you're building things through immersion, just like a foreign language. So basically that means, following step-by-step coding tutorials that are showing you how to build projects, and you learn the programming languages while you're building those projects, and you actually learn them as you go. So again, the reason this is so important is because when you're building things and you're learning the programming language that way, you're actually getting context to see how this stuff works. Because if you try to learn the programming languages by themselves before you start trying to build things, you're not going to have the context. It's not going to click. So it's just like when you see in school, right? One of the biggest complaints that kids have in school when they're learning is they see information and they're like, when am I ever going to use this? Okay. But when you're learning a programming language while you're building a project and you're seeing what you're learning and how it's actually applied in real time, it's so much faster. You're never going to ask, why am I learning this? You're going to get that immersive experience and you're going to become fluent in the language as you go. All right, so that's the philosophy of how you should learn blockchain development. But let's actually break it down into each incremental step. So the first step is what I'm going to call guided development. Okay, so basically this is where you're learning the programming languages through immersion. But how you're doing this is you're learning by doing. You're actually going over the shoulder with expert-led instruction where you're following what they're showing you how to do to actually create a real application and then learn the programming language that you need to create that application as you go. So how can you do this? Well, you can go to my YouTube homepage. You can scroll down to the free blockchain development courses playlist. It's on the YouTube homepage, and you can pick any one. I'm just going to pick one here, like this Code to Web 3.0 application like Zillow. So basically, this is a Zillow clone that uses NFTs on the blockchain where people can list properties, they can see which property they want to buy, and they can actually purchase the property on the chain with NFTs. So when you go through this process, what you're going to do is you're actually going to see how to do this from scratch. So you'll start with the basics, like how to install everything on your computer, how to install the dependencies that you can get set up for blockchain development, okay? And then whenever you finish that, you'll actually go to the basics of like, okay, how do I create a smart contract for the NFTs? All right. I'll show you how to, learn Solidity in order to create that NFT. You'll also create another smart contract that basically operates as the escrow contract that lets people list properties on chain and actually purchase them. And you're going to learn the programming language of Solidity while you're doing this. And then finally, you're going to finish the contract. You're going to deploy it with JavaScript, put it on a blockchain with Hardhat, and you're going to learn all this stuff as you go. So instead of saying like, hey, let's go do a bunch of Solidity tutorials, and then let's build a project. No, we're going to jump straight into building a project. You're going to learn Solidity as you go. Then finally, you'll go into creating the front-end application, all right, where you'll actually code out the front end in React with JavaScript. You'll use Ethers.js, and you'll learn these programming languages, these frameworks, and these libraries in the context of actually building a real-world application. So within just a few hour period, you'll go from zero to setting up your computer for blockchain, creating your first smart contracts, and then actually putting those smart contracts out there on a blockchain, and then creating a front-end website that is a real-world blockchain application that actually uses this stuff. So it's way faster than saying, hey, let's go learn some Solidity, let's learn some JavaScript, and then let's go build an application. You can condense that all down to a couple hour period and get up to speed much, much faster. All right, so that's the first step in the guided development process, is basically building a project like this that's gonna get you up to speed quickly with blockchain development. Now, all the free courses that I have here on my YouTube homepage, those are really designed to kind of give you an introduction to blockchain development and really just get you started, okay? But what you really wanna do is take the next step and build something a little more industrial strength and more professional, like you would build at a job, okay? And I'll show you an example here on my screen. So this is a decentralized cryptocurrency exchange like you build inside the blockchain bootcamp, okay? So basically, this is a real world project. You can put it out there on a blockchain. People can actually deposit real cryptocurrency into this, and they can actually trade them. And I can actually show you to build something like this step by step from scratch. So basically what a user does, they connect their wallet, they deposit cryptocurrency in here, they can make the trades. It's got a lot of advanced features on it, like a candlestick charts where you can see the price changes over time after the trade. You can see all your orders, trades, order book, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's really the next step. Basically starting off with something that gets your feet wet with blockchain development, and then moving on to something much more professional like this, where you can actually learn in a guided fashion with an expert who's done it quite a bit. And you can learn all the tips and techniques that I use on my real world projects so that you can sort of bring your skills up to that next professional level. All right, so once you've completed that guided development process, where basically someone's taking you over the shoulder and holding your hand so that you can build a project from scratch and learn their programming language as you go, you want to move on to the next step, which is what I call unguided development. So, at the end of the day, if you want to become a professional developer, you have to get the skills where someone says, hey, I want you to write the code for this project, and then you can write it without explicit instructions. You actually have to be able to write code in order to solve problems. That's what you're getting paid for. So how do you develop these skills? Well, through the process of unguided development. So basically what that means is you want to think of an app that you're going to create and then write the code in order to do it. Now, this can be kind of scary whenever you're getting started, but I'm going to show you a really easy way to do it, and then you can make it more complex over time. So the easiest way is to just modify an existing project that you've already built through guided development. So just as an example, if you go do one of these free courses on my YouTube homepage, let's say the real estate clone, you could basically take this project and then build a new feature on top of it that it doesn't already do. So, at a very basic level, if you're really scared to start this process, you can start really simple, and you could just modify some of the stuff on the website. You could just change the background color, you could change the font, you could change the logo, just to get your feet wet to say, okay, I can actually manipulate this code and make it do something it doesn't already. But you're going to want to get more sophisticated on top of that and actually add new features. So for example, with the application, currently you can only buy one property at a time. But what if you wanted to make it, buy two properties? Well, you just think about I saw how to list a property inside Solidity. I saw how to make it buy one property. So I'm just going to dig into the code in Solidity and see how to buy two properties. Okay, that's when you can piece together what you've seen up to this point to make it do something it doesn't already do. You don't have the instructions for that. That's, developing your problem solving skills as a developer so that you can practice unguided development. Now, that's just an example of how to get your feet wet with this process. But really what you want to do after that is create a complete application from scratch, okay? Now, this is where it can get a little intimidating, but once you've gone through the process of creating, an application like this, just to get your feet wet with it, or maybe you go on to create a more professional application like the Blockchain Bootcamp, you're going to have done this stuff a lot over and over again, and repetition is going to set you up to start this process. So if you built multiple projects, you're going to see okay, I know how to create a smart contract, okay? And I know how to write a test for it. I know how to put it in the blockchain. So now I just have to figure out how to create a specific type of smart contract. So what you could do is you could take a project like an NFT marketplace, for example, like OpenSea, which I mentioned before with the Bored Ape Yacht Club, where people can list NFTs, they can buy them and sell them. So if you've created something like the real estate clone before with NFTs, You've already seen how to create a smart contract. You've seen how to create an NFT. You've seen how to create a website with JavaScript. You could say like, okay, I figured out how to create an NFT here. I just have to create a new NFT and customize it for what I want to do. All right. Then I've created a smart contract that lets people buy and sell NFTs as a real estate auction. Okay. How could I do that with, digital collectibles instead? So you've already seen a lot of knowledge you can build off of. You just have to synthesize that through repetition and actually create something from scratch. That's the best, fastest way to do it. And then finally, the last step in this unguided development process is to actually take your application, the smart contracts, and put them out there on a test network blockchain, and then take your website and deploy it live to the web so that other people can actually start using it. Okay, so you can do this for free with no cryptocurrency on a test network. And what you can do is send that link around to your friends and family, show them how to use it. One of the fastest ways to learn and solidify your knowledge is to teach other people. You can teach them how to use your application, make sure that it works, send them around, and then you can use that project as your capstone project, as your main portfolio piece that you can use when you start applying for jobs. All right, so once you've gone through the process of unguided development and actually created your own application from scratch and put it out there into the wild so that other people can use it, that's gonna be your main portfolio project. But what you're going to want to do is take the next step and actually create a portfolio website that shows people what you can do. All right. So this is going to be like your digital business card, and it's going to put you way ahead of other developers out there. Okay. So let me explain why. Because basically, 90% of other developers are not going to do this. Basically, what they're going to do is they're going to apply for jobs. They're going to send out PDF resumes that just get lost in their employer's inbox. But what your portfolio does is it basically pre-qualifies you before other people talk to you. It's going to show them that, they get an idea of who you are because your portfolio reflects that. It's going to show that you go the extra mile. It's going to show that, you have a real project out there that's working. They can click through to it, they can use it, and they can also see the code on GitHub, because I highly recommend putting the source code to your project on GitHub so that people can look at it and say, oh yeah, this person's got their head screwed on straight. They know what they're doing as a blockchain developer. So if you want to create a portfolio, there's so many different ways to do it. There's a GitHub link that's like all these different developer portfolios. That's one I just pulled up here. You can see, here's an example, here's an example, here's an example. And you can see lots of different, free themes or paid themes that you can do to bootstrap your portfolio, pretty quickly so that you can actually showcase your work. Now, a bonus tip on your portfolio is whenever you're creating it and you actually, put your projects on this so they can click through and use it, a bonus tip is to actually create a video, okay? So a video that just says, hey, I'm Tosh here. I'm just pulling up the name on the website. I'm a blockchain developer. Here's my project. And then actually demo your project working. So this is huge because what it does is it basically pre-qualifies you before anyone talks to you, because they get a sense of what you're like, how you communicate, what your skills are, and a sense of what it's going to be like to work with you before you even get to an interview. It's going to open up a lot more doors than other developers who send out this, lifeless, impersonal resume that doesn't really help get a sense of what that person's like. Having a portfolio and a video with a real world project is going to be a huge edge when you're trying to become a blockchain developer. All right, so now once you've completed all those steps, whenever you have an unguided project that you've created yourself, you've put it out there as your portfolio project, you've got a portfolio website that shows people who you are and what you can do, all that stuff's live out there on the web. Now it's time to start marketing yourself as a blockchain developer. So one of the most common questions that I get is, when should you start applying for jobs? Well, I'm actually going to give you a counterintuitive answer, all right? And that's actually as soon as you have a portfolio out there with a project that you've created from scratch, that's when it's time to start applying, okay? Because people do this the wrong way. They get imposter syndrome. They think, oh, I'm not good enough. I'm not ready to start. I'm not, nobody's actually going to hire me as a blockchain developer. But that's the wrong way to think, okay? Because sure, you may not get hired instantly the first time that you try, but you're going to get a ton of value out of doing this for several reasons. So number one is you're going to get experience actually applying for jobs and interviewing, okay? That's a huge skill in and of itself. And the more you do that, it's just a matter of time before something's going to land. Now, the other thing is, if you get feedback on your skills to say, hey, a lot of people are looking for this and I'm, don't quite have the skills in this particular area, then it gives you feedback that you can actually go take action on improving right now. What you don't want to do is wait months and months and months to get that feedback. And then you're like, oh, Now, when you start working on this, that's months down the road, and it might take you some time to actually acquire those skills. So if you get a portfolio out there, take action now, get the feedback, and then start implementing that feedback, you're going to start landing your job way faster than if you wait forever to feel like you're ready. I promise you, you're never going to feel ready. You just have to start. All right, so now how do you actually get a job as a blockchain developer? So there is a lot of different ways to do this, okay? And what you have to kind of do is take inventory of your current situation and figure out, okay, what advantages do I have? What disadvantages do I have? And then try to fit the best strategy based upon that current situation. So I'll go through a couple scenarios here. So number one is if you know anybody who works at a company that's hiring blockchain developers, that's the number one lever that you should pull in this situation. Because if you know somebody, they can vouch for your skills, they can introduce you to the right people. Sometimes you can even cut through the application process. And this is going to be a huge advantage if you have this available to you. Now, most people watching this video probably will not have that advantage. That's okay. There's still lots of other viable ways. But just in case you do, I want to stress that because a lot of people just overlook that fact if it's right on the table. Now, another potential option is if you're a developer already and you work in a company that has blockchain developers, but you're not a blockchain developer yet, then that's also a really great way to do it. Also, sometimes there are situations where you're a developer at a company and they want to start looking into blockchain and implementing some type of blockchain solution. You might be able to actually create a job for yourself. I've worked with lots of different students who've done this exact same thing. Also, if you work in the Web 3.0 industry already, but maybe you're not in a technical role, but your same company actually has blockchain developers, perhaps that you can show them what you've been working on and they could hire you internally. Internal hires are always way better because they already know what you're capable of and what you like to work with. You have a proven track record and that's a huge advantage. Now, again, most people watching this video won't have these advantages to them, but if you do, you should definitely take advantage of those. But if not, what are some other ways? So you can definitely go the traditional route of just looking at job posting websites like Indeed.com. Also, LinkedIn Jobs has a ton of job postings. There's all kinds of different job listing websites out there that'll, show all types of tech jobs, including blockchain developer jobs. Now, there's a couple of things that you have to understand whenever you're using these websites. So number one is you have to look at a few different keywords, all right? If you just search for blockchain developer, that may not actually show you all the different types of blockchain developer jobs that are out there. You might want to change the keywords up a little bit. You might want to look for things like Solidity developer, blockchain engineer, software developer that comes up at a blockchain company, all right? So that's going to yield a lot more search results than just looking for one particular keyword. Okay, so you also might want to drill down to some specific keywords like junior developer if you're just starting from scratch and you want to find a junior blockchain job. Now, there's lots of things that I see from people all the time that may not understand how to go through this process. So number one is they get really intimidated because they see job postings that say, hey, I need all kinds of experience, like 5 years of experience, and I don't see any jobs that I'm qualified for. Well, the first thing you have to understand is, there's what employers say they want from an employee, but they can't always get everything that they want, okay? So a lot of times they have to make compromises in who they hire. So what I would say is, if you look at a job posting and you meet 50% of the requirements at least, it's probably worth applying. Like, it's not going to hurt you to do that, all right? So you'd be surprised that sometimes you'll even get interviews for companies that, you don't meet all the hiring requirements for, and you can be honest about that whenever you're in your interview, and you can still get those jobs based on what you can do, even if you don't satisfy all those criteria. All right, so another problem I see all the time is people say, well, I don't see any junior developer jobs out there. Well, number one, it's not true. There's lots of junior jobs that you can see on these types of websites. You just have to know how to find them. But another really counterintuitive thing is that a lot of junior developer jobs aren't actually advertised on these websites. So why is that? Well, that's because, companies have to pay in order to advertise on websites like Indeed or LinkedIn Jobs. And they're usually going to get a much higher return on investment or ROI if they are advertising senior level roles, okay? So what you can do is if a company is hiring senior developers or maybe mid-level developers, sometimes they are also open to hiring junior developers. They're just not advertising for it, okay? So not all the time, but sometimes. So one viable strategy is if a company is hiring developers at all, you can still reach out to those people and see if they're open to hiring junior developers. You can do this through a lot of different ways. You can find the email addresses of the people who work for the company, the CEOs, the founders, people who are on the team. You can actually look at them on LinkedIn. You can message them. There's all kinds of sneaky ways to do this. You can call the company directly if they have a phone number, et cetera, et cetera. But that's one way to find junior developer jobs that may not be listed on these websites. And so finally, in addition to these general job posting sites, you can also look at crypto-specific job sites. So one example is cryptojobslist.com. There's all different types of jobs that are specifically for the blockchain industry. Now, this is not all developer jobs, okay? It's other types of jobs as well, but it's for the blockchain industry. But most of these jobs are going to be for developers, okay? You can actually filter by different protocols. You can look for Ethereum developers. You can look for Solidity developers, front-end developers. There's all different types of things inside of here, okay? So you can even filter by front-end because, again, one of the easiest ways to break in the industry is to actually become a front-end developer and then get the experience and work your way towards the other parts of the blockchain stack if you want to. You're going to see lots of applications just like that on a website like Crypto Jobs List. All right, so in addition to just applying for jobs directly online, there's all kinds of different ways that you can try to get your foot in the door by getting your first blockchain developer job. So one way is to go to hackathons, okay? So what is a hackathon? Well, basically, it's a big event where developers come and they build projects over maybe a weekend, over a week, or whatever the time period is. And then you collaborate with other developers do this, and then you present your project to judges, okay? And they select the project they like the best, and then usually have a winner and some runner-ups. There's even prize pools for doing this. I've worked with students who've actually won money from hackathons. It's a really great way to increase your skills and experience, and then also get in front of eyeballs of other people who might want to hire you. So how can you do this? Well, there's lots of different ways. So whenever you're presenting your projects, a lot of the judges are actually working for companies. And if they see who you are and what your skills are, that could potentially lead to hiring conversations. Not to mention that, it's also a huge networking opportunity with other developers. So if you work with a developer in a hackathon and they go on and get a job at a blockchain company and they worked with you on a project, there may be a 2-for-1 deal where you could both go work at the same company, or maybe later down the road, they could refer you as for a job, maybe a different job even, but they can vouch for your skills and help you break in, okay? So another opportunity is through in-person meetups, all right? So what is that? Well, basically, if you live in a major metropolitan area, you may have access to a regular gathering where people are actually talking about blockchain development. So basically, a meetup group is where professionals and aspiring professionals get together, just stay up to date with what's happening in the industry, talk about what they're working on. And a lot of times there are people who are able to open doors for hiring inside of these types of groups. And so that's actually how I got my first developer job, okay? I got it through going to a meetup, showing people what I could do, and somebody actually hired me as a freelancer through a local meetup just like this. Now, whenever you're going to a meetup, you don't want to just walk in the door and say, hey, everybody, I'm looking for a job. Like that might work, okay? Because sometimes people will actually just go around the room and say, hey, we're hiring, who wants a job? That can happen, but what you want to do is go there, show up, probably multiple times, make your face known, and then that can start to lead to organic hiring conversations over time. All right, so on top of that, if you are trying to become a blockchain developer and break into the industry, then I highly recommend leveraging LinkedIn. It's a very powerful platform for getting hired. Let me explain why. So if you set up a LinkedIn profile and you actually put your experience on there and you update your profile to say that you're a blockchain developer, use the important keywords like blockchain developer, Solidity developer, list all the technologies that you're now proficient with, then LinkedIn is a massive search engine. That's what a lot of people don't realize, okay? Because there's all types of people on the other side of the screen, whether it's hiring managers or recruiters, who are actively searching on LinkedIn for talent that they can hire or place in roles. And if you have your profile up to date, then trust me, people are going to reach out to you about opportunities, okay? So you definitely want to get your profile updated. You want to have a nice professional headshot. You want to add all the keywords. You want to put your project on there, your portfolio, your resume, everything, so that people can find you, okay? Now, the bonus for LinkedIn is to actually start creating some content on the platform. So that's another way people can find you organically. So a really easy way to do that is to just document what you're building, okay? You don't want to just post like, hey, I'm looking for a job. What you want to do is like create a post that adds value and puts it out there in the community that shows people that you know what you're talking about, and then documents the entire process of the app that you're building. And then at the end of the post, you can say, you know, I'm looking for my next blockchain role, or, you know, if you want to work together, then, you know, send me a message or something like that. But you want the majority of the post to be offering some type of value, educating the viewer. And you can do that already by what you're creating for your portfolio project. You can also take this same strategy and expand it out into other social platforms. You could do it on Twitter. You know, you could do it on YouTube. Basically the same idea is just creating content that educates other people and shows them what you can do, and then has a way for them to contact you about particular opportunities. Okay. Now, you don't have to be a massive content creator in order to do this. If you do this and just get in front of a few important eyeballs, you'd be surprised what potentially comes your way if you're consistent with this process over time. Finally, you can do the same type of thing. You can get inside of Discord groups for blockchain projects that you already know about, because I've seen this work out a lot, where basically new developers find a project that they're passionate about. They get inside the Discord community where other people are actually developing for it. And they're just like, hey, you know, I'm trying to build this project with your technology. Okay. And here's a question that I have about it. And that could be a way to open the door to having other conversations with actual developers on the project. You can start to develop relationships with them, and there may be a hiring opportunity there as well. Now, you can see that there's all these different types of strategies for finding your first blockchain developer job. Whether you're, you know, applying for things online, you're, you know, going to hackathons, you're going to meetups, you're on LinkedIn with your profile, you're posting on there, maybe you're posting on a different platform like Twitter or YouTube, you're in Discord groups. What I really want to stress is that you probably want to pick multiple strategies and then really go for it. What you don't want to do is just apply for jobs and hope that that works out. You probably want to be doing that plus some LinkedIn, plus some other types of things to get a lot of irons in the fire and really expand the net, cast it far and wide to increase the likelihood that the right opportunity is going to come your way and that something will actually land. All right, so now what I want to say is if you're brand new to coding and you're just trying to start as a blockchain developer, your main number one goal at your first job, it really is just to get your foot in the door and break into the industry. Okay. So that might mean, you know, lowering your expectations a little bit, perhaps in terms of your compensation. What you really want to do is just make sure you're getting paid enough to get by at a minimum. You might get a great salary, but if you don't, that's okay, because you're going to get something that's way more valuable to you, which is real world experience on the job. There's really no substitute for it. And once you have that on your resume, you have a massive bargaining chip to either, number one, you could just get a raise at your current company and work your way up. Or if you want to go apply for another job later, you'll have the real world experience on your resume. It'll make getting that second job vastly easier than getting the first job because you'll have the experience. Okay. But if you're new, here's what you want to do. Okay. Whenever you're interviewing with somebody, you're trying to get your foot in the door, you want to really stress that you are going to do whatever it takes to get the job done. They want to see that you're hungry to learn, but that you're also going to do whatever it takes to provide value. You really want to focus on providing value to them. You want to make the conversation about what you can do for them, not what they can do for you. Because I see so many people go into this just trying to say, hey, what can I get out of this opportunity? That's the wrong way to think about it. You need to flip it around the other way and say, here's what I can do for you, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to get the job done. You can, of course, be honest about your skill level, but you really want to lead with that first, that you're ready to do whatever it takes to make the job work. Okay, so that's an overview of some different ways that you can, start trying to get your foot in the door at your first blockchain developer job, no matter where you're starting from, okay? So ideally, you want to be pursuing multiple strategies. You'll be applying for jobs, as many as possible. You've been talking to as many people as possible. If you have referrals, use those. You can start going out there on LinkedIn, getting that updated, have all these irons in the fire, and just keep working on this until it works. Now, I want to say one little piece here, which is about rejection. So you're probably going to face rejection at some point in this process. Now, rejection sucks. I don't like it myself, but it is a natural part of the process. And the best, most productive thing that you can do with rejection is actually learn from it. Okay, take it as a learning opportunity. So what does that look like? Well, try to understand why you're actually rejected in the first place. Maybe it just wasn't a good fit. All right, it could be a culture fit, could be all kinds of different reasons. but maybe there actually is a skill issue for the particular thing that you're trying to apply for. What you can try to do is actually get some feedback from the employer on why you didn't get the job, and then actually take that feedback, internalize it, and iterate on it so that you can, get the next opportunity. Now, not everybody's going to tell you why you didn't get the job, but it's still worth the attempt at getting that information so you can actually take the feedback, use it constructively to find the next thing. And so once you do this, you go through this process of having all these irons in the fire, pursuing all these different strategies for getting a job. You actually iterate on the feedback that you get from the marketplace. I firmly believe that anybody with enough aptitude, and if you've gotten this far in the YouTube video, chances are you've probably got the aptitude to do this. Anybody with that, and then the resolve to just continue doing this over and over again, with enough time and enough dedication, is probably going to find an opportunity to get their foot in the door as a blockchain developer inside the industry and can work their way up to something much more promising over time. And then trust me, whenever you finish that process and you finally get that blockchain developer job, it's going to feel amazing. And you're going to sit back and you're going to celebrate. Congratulations, you've just gotten your first blockchain job. All right, so now I want to answer some frequently asked questions that I get all the time. So the first one is, should I learn blockchain first, or should I learn a bunch of other stuff like computer science fundamentals, algorithms, maybe even some other programming language before I jump into blockchain? So my answer is 100% no. Okay, so let me tell you why. So I actually changed my opinion on this over time. So I used to think that maybe you needed a little bit of programming knowledge and some experience before you got into blockchain, but I actually had to change my opinion on that because I helped a lot of people just learn blockchain as their first programming language who are able to actually successfully do that and then break into the industry and become blockchain developers before they even wrote a single line of code in their lives. Like, they never studied algorithms, they never did any of this type of stuff. So basically, if you want to learn blockchain, 100%, you should start with that and then learn everything else as you go. So let me explain. When I got started as a developer, I didn't know all this other stuff. I basically got hired pretty quickly after teaching myself how to code, but I had a pretty limited set of knowledge, to be perfectly honest, right? But I got in there and actually started learning the other things like computer science fundamentals, all these other types of programming languages that I need as I was on the job, okay? And you can do the exact same thing as a developer, because at the end of the day, every single developer ends up on the path of self-learning. And, if you just go straight for the throat, you get your foot in the door, you learn what you need to know by learning blockchain first, you've got tons of time to fill in the gaps that you don't know, like additional programming languages, computer science fundamentals, how algorithms work, and all this other stuff that people think they have to do before they start on the blockchain journey. They're really just putting the cart before the horse. You want to go straight for the thing that you actually want to learn with blockchain, because it goes back to that principle of immersion. If you're going to learn a foreign language, the absolute fastest way to do that is through immersion. It's the same with programming, and then you can learn all the other important stuff you need down the road. So the next question is, can you learn blockchain as your first language? So this should be a pretty easy answer for what I just explained a second ago. Yes, you can learn blockchain as your first language. A lot of people think like maybe I need to go learn a little bit of Python first or learn a little bit of JavaScript first before I start blockchain. No. Again, going back to that principle of immersion, if you want to learn blockchain, that's exactly what we should start off with, and learn all the other programming languages as you go. So the next question is, do you need a degree to become a blockchain developer? Do you need a computer science degree? Do you need any type of degree at all? Well, I'll give you a pretty easy answer. I don't have a computer science degree, and I've been working in blockchain for a very long time. I never needed a computer science degree to get started. I've helped lots of other people who don't have computer science degrees become blockchain developers. So also, do you need a degree at all? No, you don't need a degree in order to become a blockchain developer. I've helped lots of people who do not have college degrees become blockchain developers. All right. People at the end of the day care about what you can do. And if you go through the process of actually acquiring real world blockchain developer skills, putting that into a portfolio to show people what you can do, you can have opportunities to break into the industry, to get your foot in the door, and then start getting that industry experience that's going to help build your resume, that's going to make it so much easier for you to get other jobs later. And once they see that you've got the industry experience, like, you're not going to need a degree. Now, that being said, there are certain specialties inside of tech, inside of blockchain, that are going to require degrees. But for the vast majority of the jobs out there, you don't need a degree in order to do this. Now, the final thing I'll say about the degree is, if you're watching this and you're of college age, or you're thinking about going to college, all right, and let's say that you've already decided that you are going to go to college no matter what, or maybe your parents are making you go to college And maybe they're even paying for your college, okay? Well, if you're going to do that and you're going to study something, then, and you know you want to become a blockchain developer, it's not going to hurt you to get a computer science degree, okay? That's going to give you a ton of solid fundamentals and a huge, framework to expand into all different types of technology and also with blockchain. So like if you're going to get a degree already, a computer science degree is not going to hurt you, but it's definitely not required to become a blockchain developer. All right, so the last frequently asked question I get all the time is how long does it take to become a blockchain developer? Well, just like everything else, the answer is it depends, all right? But I'll elaborate on that. So let's start on the fast end of things, all right? So the fastest that I've personally seen anybody kind of go from zero to becoming a professional blockchain developer is 2 months, all right? So I've actually got a video about that on my YouTube homepage. You can go see that. It was a student that I worked with who got their first blockchain developer job in 2 months from scratch after going through my training, okay? Now, that's pretty fast, okay? Now, you could go a little bit beyond that. You're starting to get into like a 3 and 4 month period. If you have a lot of structured training with hands-on mentorship, you can definitely accomplish it in that amount of time. You even, go that even farther, 6 to 9 months, 12 months, whatever it is. You also have to take inventory of, a lot of different things. Like how much time do you actually have to devote to this process? Can you do this for 10 hours a week? Can you do it for 2 hours a week? Can you do it for a full 40 hours a week? All right. If you can do something for 40 hours a week, obviously you're going to get there way faster than if you can only do it 2 hours a week. All right. Same type of thing. Are you single? Do you have kids? There's all these different lifestyle factors that are going to factor into how long it actually takes you to achieve that goal. So, that being said, no matter how long it takes you, you need a timeline goal whenever you're going down this journey, okay? And the maximum goal that I would say for anybody is 1 year, all right? You don't want it to take longer than that. So why should you set a goal in the first place? Well, because really work tends to take the amount of time that you give it, all right? And if you give yourself, too long of a goal, you're just going to wait forever, all right? But if you say like, hey, I'm going to do this in 6 months, all right? Then you're going to like reverse engineer this thing and say, okay, if I'm going to do this in 6 months, then I need to have this milestone done by month 2. I need to have this one done by month 3, et cetera, et cetera. And you're actually going to put steps into place that are going to help you take action and actually accomplish that goal with a deadline on the calendar. So, even if it takes you longer than your goal, that doesn't really matter that much. Like if your goal is 6 months and you accomplish it in 7, like, are you really going to care in the grand scheme of things? The important is to time box it, to give yourself a deadline, break everything down into the steps required to do that, and then just go out there and crush it. All right, so that's an overview of how to become a blockchain developer in 2025. So I can't stress enough, the blockchain industry is absolutely booming. There's a ton of opportunity for developers in this space. It's one of the highest paying fields in tech, and it's one of the fastest growing technologies in all recorded history. Not to mention the fact that it's super remote friendly. You get to work on a ton of exciting technology. I mean, what's not to love? So if you got a ton of value out of this video and you want to take the next step, then like what can you do today to start taking action? Well, the first thing you can definitely do is make sure you like that video. Just click the button down below this video and make sure you subscribe to this channel. Because whenever you like that video, it really helps this video out on YouTube. It shows to more people, and that would mean a ton to me because I put so much time into creating this free resource so that other people can learn to become blockchain developers. And also, again, make sure you subscribe. I'm going to be dropping a ton of free blockchain development courses for you in 2025 right here on YouTube, completely free of charge. And so, yeah, definitely watch out for that stuff. But if you want to get started more today, you can definitely go to my YouTube homepage. You can see those free courses there. You can get started on that guide development process like I was talking about. Just pick one that looks interesting to you and get started. Now, if you want to take the next step beyond that, or you just want to take a shortcut and go for the throat and build, a big decentralized cryptocurrency exchange like I showed you earlier, I can show you how to do that inside the blockchain bootcamp. Just head on over to dappuniversity.com/bootcamp to get started today. Again, you really don't have to be an expert to get started today. I've helped people with zero coding experience become real world blockchain developers in a matter of months. No matter what your goal is, if you're trying to break into the industry, you're trying to land a job, increase your salary well past 100K, create your own trading bots with DeFi and flash loans, whatever it is, I can help you crush your goals over at dappuniversity.com/bootcamp. So that's all I've got for today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you more in 2025.